Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new episode of your Fredcast. My name's Gary, and today, here I am once again. And I'm about to talk to you guys about anxiety. To be more specific, about a book that is about anxiety, of course, by Dr. Augusto Cury, a Brazilian bestseller. Of course, if you're listening to this podcast, chances are that you're Brazilian, just like me. And you probably know him if you're Brazilian, or at least heard his name before. He's basically, in case you don't know much about him, he's a Brazilian bestseller. I think is the third Brazilian bestseller all over the world. If we stop to think about it, we only have Chico Xavier selling more, and Paulo Coelho. The only two Brazilian names, as far as I remember, that have outsold him, basically, are these two names. So, yeah, big thing, isn't it? Number 3, with books translated into lots of languages. I don't even remember the number, but more than 30 languages, for sure. And I'll be very, very honest with you guys. By reading his books about 10 years ago, I have changed my life for better, of course. And it helped me, and it still helps me understand the human mind, the way our thoughts are processed inside our head, and how much does it affect the interaction, or even causes the interaction we have around our daily necessities and relations, interactions, So yeah, I'm going to talk about a book that I didn't read fully, okay? But I'm pretty sure that I can talk about it I can kind of make a comment. It's kind of a lazy approach, but I am, by reading many of his books before, in which he mentions anxiety a lot. I'm pretty confident I can talk about it. Of course, I have the help. I have had the help of my big buddy ChatGPT. Word up, GPT. So I'll have some help. But the main point here is about anxiety, which I personally believe is something that affects us all. Today, it's almost impossible not being anxious, with information flying, from one cell phone to the other, and information running so fast. Something happens in the Queen of England dies, and a few minutes later, we all know it around the world. And of course, social medias, I talked about it in previous episodes here. The social medias today have drastically changed the way we relate. People establish relationships, and more, the way people establish their cosmovision, so to say. So I'm just saying this as an introductory point, because truth be told, these are, if not the main causers, but a considerable they have a considerable amount of responsibility over the anxieties in plural of the modern world. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I forgot to just tell you to go grab a cup of coffee. It's a chilly Friday. I have or water or beer. It's Friday. You're allowed to drink beer if you want to, of course. So feel free to go and get whatever it takes for you to relax. Enjoy me in this pretty useful and interesting and necessary, ladies and gentlemen, conversation. So let's go. One of the first things I noticed in the past about myself was that really made me think, hey, I'm an anxious person, was how much I keep tapping my feet or my leg or one of my legs, or both, when I'm standing still or sitting, for example. I mean, someone close to me mentioned that like 10 years ago, more or less. And ever since, I just keep paying attention to me, of course, but to my body language, basically. What am I moving my fingers? Am I twiddling my fingers? Am I tapping my one of my feet, my legs? And ever since I started inevitably noticing that, or at least paying attention to this, to such habits in other people, and then I started realizing, like, oh my gosh, of course I'm an anxious person, because I have to hold myself back, not to be doing that all the time, including right now, by the way. I'm not doing that right now, but I'm holding myself back. But I noticed that lots of people, and I'm gonna say most people, because that wouldn't be fair, but lots of people, of course, the more you pay attention, when you pay attention to something, you amplify that. So of course, by me having this habit of paying attention to these movements, body movements, I amplify that, and I of course will have the impression that more people do that than the actual number. But anyways, it is really surprising how many people I see, and probably from now on you're gonna start noticing that, how many people are not standing still completely when they're supposed to, like when they're sitting, like when they're relaxing. They're right there, they are, tapping one of their feet or both legs, shaking both legs, or twiddling their thumbs, their fingers. You can see in their eyes how much they're looking all around, as if they were running from a predator. Why not? And that's it. This is really concerning, to be honest. If you haven't, if you didn't get concerned about it by hearing my short introduction here about this point specifically, perhaps you should, because it is quite concerning. Because at the end of the day, anxiety, I'm not gonna talk about it as a professional, guys. I always have to come with this disclaimer that I am just an English speaker, English teacher, and the main purpose of this podcast is to get you in contact, make you have weekly contact with the English language, with the spontaneous English language. So don't take me for a pro, don't take me for an expert, okay? So this is concerning, because anxiety, in my opinion, is nothing but fear of future and past at the same time. Most people will say, or at least the initial impression when it comes to anxiety is about the future. It's all about the future. Well, could be, okay, but I beg to disagree, because I also believe that, at least by paying attention to myself, by analyzing my own feelings when I'm feeling anxious, it has a lot to do with the past too. The things you did, the things you regretted doing, the things you didn't manage to do, or you didn't manage to do them properly, or at least not as good as you would like to have done them. And of course the future, because that will reflect how things go on, all right? How things will turn out a few hours ahead, or a few days, or even years in the future. And that gets us afraid, gets us scared of reprimand from a boss or from a parent, depending on how old you are. It sounds foolish for grown-up people, but if you still live with your parents, well, I remember living with my parents, and of course I had lovely parents, but I know what it feels like I can understand what it feels like. I'm not that old not to remember what it feels like being afraid of a reprimand from your parents or someone in your family for whatever reason that is. Okay, being you deserving that or not, of course, especially if you're not. If not by afraid of your parents, a boss, as I said, of course, this is the most obvious one. Then being afraid of judgment, like you're gonna fail in it in front of everybody, and depending on most of the time it's not in front of literally everybody, but I mean it's never literally in front of everybody, but you got my point, in front of the public, right? But if it is something related to the public, you may be anxious about it, well, by and large, I encourage you to do what I did about it. Okay, if you identify, if you relate to this part of the conversation here, if you feel like, hey, that's me, in the words I said here, in the words I'm just saying here, if you relate to that, I invite you to pay attention to yourself. Like every time you're feeling anxious, you stop everything, go to a place where you feel safe, be that a toilet, be that your bedroom, be that under a tree. Breathe in and out for a few seconds, and then ask yourself, where did it come from? Where did this feeling come from? I know it's not possible all the time. Of course, you're not gonna jeopardize your career by doing that. If you say you're late for work and you're anxious because you're late, there's nothing much you can do unless other than concentrate fully on your way to work, whatever it is, the way you work, by driving, by being on a bus, whatever. There isn't much, of course, especially if you're driving, you have to be as much concentrated, as much focus as possible on your way to work or to school or anything. But if that's not the case, okay, I encourage you to relax and ask yourself, where did it come from? Simple like that. By doing that, you probably, if you're like me, which I believe it's very, very probable, because I'm a normal person, have nothing special as far as I can tell. I mean, not special that nobody has, that's my point. Every one of us, in my opinion, have something special, but that's it. If you do that, I believe that you're gonna start understanding your own fears and insecurities, and this is the first step someone can take. The first step you can take to destroy it, to send this feeling away, to expel this feeling from inside your heart. No, it's not that simple. If I had the secret to do that, I'll be rich by selling my consultancies to people that were anxious, and I would probably be rich by working hard, and not because I would charge much for this work. So yeah, of course not. It's not that simple. Don't you ever, if you're an anxious person, don't you ever dare underestimating anxiety or any of your feelings, any other feelings you have, because things are not that simple. The feelings are intricate are intricate to our very own existence, to be honest, So let us take a look at the main points of the book by Augusto Cury I mentioned. I asked, of course, my friend ChatGPT to help me here. And the point number one is what the so-called by Cury, the accelerated thought syndrome, síndrome do pensamento acelerado, he will call that in Portuguese, which refers to the overwhelming rush of thoughts that causes mental exhaustion and heightened anxiety. He explains that ATS, Accelerated Thought Syndrome, SPA in Portuguese acronym, is a significant factor contributing to anxiety and emotional distress. That's pretty much a precise description of the status, I don't even know if that's the correct way to say that, but the default mode, if you're into technology, you know what I'm talking about, the main pattern of our brain. All right, but let's check cause number 2. Causes of modern anxiety. The book examines how fast-paced lifestyles, excessively connectivity like social media and technology, and high societal expectations contribute to a state of chronic stress and anxiety. Yeah, I just mentioned that before, how much social media affect us all. Social medias, in the plural, affect us all. This lifestyle we have, the modern lifestyle of being connected, being checking our Facebooks all the time. But also, for not everybody, but for certain people, the society, societal, as they say, as ChatGPT brings the adjective here, societal, what is the word? Expectations, Say, for example, you're born to a kind of a rich family in which you're expected to be the heir, the successor of your father, and you have to, there's a verb we use in English, live up to. So you have to live up to the expectations of not only people in your family, but people around your family. Say the employees of your father, for example. I don't fit into this category. Probably neither do you. But despite of the thing of, hey, he's a playboy, he's a rich guy, or she, that may be really tough. Let us be humble here and put ourselves into in their shoes, Of course, there are way more pros of being born to a rich family, to a wealthy family, than cons. But there are some cons, and these cons may end up affecting one's psyche, our psychology structure. Point number 3, impact on mental health. Cury emphasizes that anxiety not only impacts mental health, but also affects physical health, cognitive functions, and overall quality of life. It can lead to symptoms such as irritability, difficulty concentrating, and insomnia. Well, the ADHD, TDAH, levels today have said all about it, So this is just my comment. Number 5, importance of emotional intelligence. He brings this up a lot in this bibliography, in the other books he wrote. Developing emotional intelligence is highlighted as a key tool for handling anxiety. This includes being aware of one's emotion, managing reactions, and improving resilience. Remember when I say I feel like I feel entitled to talk about his book even without having read it? Yeah, pretty much that. This very topic here, this very point here summarizes everything I said before. And as I made it very clear, coming from the experience I had by reading his books, other of his books before. 6, slowing down. The author advises readers to cultivate moments of pause and reflection in their daily routines to counteract the accelerated pace of modern life. Simple activities like disconnecting from screens, engaging in hobbies, and enjoying nature are recommended for mental rest. 7, self-compassion and self-care. Cury advocates for treating oneself with kindness, understanding personal limits, and prioritizing self-care as essential practice for mitigating anxiety. So true. So true. 8, and last, educational and preventative measures. The book suggests that anxiety prevention should start from childhood by teaching young people healthy ways to manage stress and develop emotional skills early on. Well, this is the main point. I would say the top part of his book, which probably will get me reading this book in the upcoming months. Of course, because I'm a big fan of Cury's work, but also because of this part. We all think that we grow up to become anxious, adults, anxious grown-ups. But it's not exactly that, at least not all the time. If you pay attention to the kids, you see that they are anxious. Of course, there's a natural component to that. Kids have much more stamina, much more energy than us, and of course, they will get excited more easily than we do. But not all that is related to energy, you know. It comes from, I believe, again, my humble opinion, I'm no expert to that subject, but I believe that kids take that from their parents. Remember the thing of people tapping their feet, shaking their legs, twiddling their thumbs? Yeah, kids pay attention to that. Subconsciously most of the time, but they do. Okay? And they will, of course, inherit that, for lack of a better word, and of course it has a very good word to describe it, and take that and grow up with that, and of course become anxious grown up. So if you have kids, I do have kids, I think it would be interesting. Start paying attention to them, and of course paying attention to yourself, as I said before. Okay? But this is it about anxiety. Thank you so very much for your lovely company. I do recommend you read all of Augusto Cury's books. They're wonderful, they're great. But this would be a great starter. And of course, homework for myself, because I need to read this one. All right. Thank you very much for your lovely company. I really appreciate it. This is all for this episode. I see you in the next one. Bye-bye.